Welcome to Kanerika's podcast, The Digital Shift. I am your host, and today we are doing a deep dive into some absolutely fascinating content about the invisible machinery running modern retail.
And I am your resident data expert. And honestly, I am so excited to jump into this today because the sheer scale of what we're going to talk about is, well, it is pretty mind-blowing.
It really is. So let's just get right into it. Imagine walking into a retail store, right? And before your hand even grazes a blue cashmere sweater on the table, the store manager already knows, mathematically, that you are going to put it back on the shelf.
Right, like they already know your exact price threshold.
Exactly. They know your typical shopping habits, and they know what tiny friction point is about to change your mind. Today, we are exploring the tech making that level of omniscience possible.
Yeah, it is data analytics. Specifically how the whole industry is rapidly moving away from just, guessing what customers want to actually knowing it as a mathematical certainty.
And the money behind this shift is wild.
Oh, it is massive. The global retail analytics market was valued at roughly $10.2 billion in 2025. And by 2034, that figure is hurtling toward $37 billion.
Wait, 37 billion? In less than a decade.
Yeah, $37 billion. And that capital isn't just buying faster computers, It is buying these massive, complex data pipelines, machine learning models, and predictive algorithms. The whole goal is to just remove human intuition from the merchandising process entirely.
And to you, the listener, this impacts you every single day. Every time you open a mobile shopping app or every time you add an item to a digital cart and then close the browser.
Even just scanning a loyalty card in a physical checkout lane.
Right. You are feeding this relentless data engine. So today in this deep dive, we are going to decode the mechanics of that engine. We will look at what fuels it, how it processes your behavior, and why the biggest players view it as a matter of pure survival.
Because survival really is the operative word here.
Right.
I mean, retailers are currently operating inside an intense pressure cooker.
Yeah, they really are.
You have supply chain logistics, warehouse storage, and frontline labor costs, all creating this permanently elevated baseline for operating expenses.
And at the same time, consumer price sensitivity is just at an all-time high. I mean, a shopper can stand in the middle of a physical aisle, pull out their smartphone, and cross-reference the price of a blender with 3 global competitors in, like, under 10 seconds.
Exactly. But, some might ask why this is a sudden emergency.
Right. Let me actually challenge that idea. Because retail has always been a game of pennies, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Margins have always been razor thin. Competitors have always tried to undercut each other. So what is fundamentally different about the landscape right now that justifies a $37 billion panic?
Well, the differentiator today is the speed of comparison combined with the complexity of the modern transaction. Operational errors now carry an immediate magnified cost to the bottom line.
Give me an example of that.
Okay, consider the mechanics of overstocking. If a retailer buys too many units of a seasonal product, they don't just lose the upfront capital.
Right, they have to store it.
Exactly. And eventually, they are forced to execute aggressive markdowns just to clear the shelf space, which completely erodes their profit margin on that item.
And then on the flip side, if they understock.
If they understock, they don't merely miss out on a single transaction. In this frictionless digital economy, they actively push that customer to a competitor's app.
Wow. So they are potentially breaking a purchasing habit that cost them hundreds of marketing dollars to acquire in the first place.
Precisely. And then you add the phenomenon of omnichannel shopping to that,
Yeah.
and the complexity just multiplies exponentially.
Yeah, Omnichannel is a beast. Think about your own typical shopping journey. You might browse for a pair of running shoes on a mobile app on Tuesday during your commute.
Right, just looking around.
Yeah. And then on Thursday, you visit a physical store just to try them on for sizing, but you leave empty-handed. And finally, on Sunday, you purchase them online from your laptop.
Now, from the customer's perspective, that is a single, continuous, logical path to purchase.
It makes perfect sense to us.
But look at it from the perspective of a retailer running legacy technology. Without a unified data architecture, that single journey registers as 3 completely isolated, disconnected anomalies.
Oh, I see.
The mobile app team sees a highly engaged user who never bought anything. The physical store sees foot traffic that didn't convert to a sale.
And the web team sees a magical Sunday transaction that seemingly came out of nowhere.
Exactly. They have massive blind spots, making it impossible to attribute what actually drove the revenue.
Okay, let's unpack this. Trying to piece together that Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday timeline using disconnected historical spreadsheets is like trying to officiate a basketball game by only looking at still photographs taken every 5 minutes.
That is a great way to put it.
Right. You can see the score changing on the board, but you have absolutely no mechanical understanding of how the ball is moving down the court or who is actually making the plays.
And that lack of visibility is expensive. When a retailer transitions from looking at those isolated historical photographs to analyzing a continuous forward-looking data stream, the financial impact is staggering.
How staggering are we talking?
Well, McKinsey research indicates a 15 to 25% profit margin improvement for analytics-driven retailers compared to those still relying on manual, intuition-based processes.
A 25% margin improvement in retail, that is earth-shattering.
It really is. That margin is generated simply by avoiding unnecessary markdowns and preventing costly stockouts.
Okay, but how do we actually bridge the gap between logging a transaction and predicting the future? Let's walk through the mechanics of how a system learns to look forward.
Sure. So the evolution happens across 4 distinct tiers, moving from traditional business intelligence to advanced AI. The baseline is descriptive analytics.
Descriptive.
Yeah. This is your standard foundational dashboard. It simply answers the question, what happened? It pulls your sales summaries and your inventory counts.
So descriptive analytics is essentially just the receipt. It tells me that my winter boot sales dropped by 14% last week, but it offers zero context as to why.
Exactly. It is the alarm bell, but it requires the next tier to be actionable. Stage 2 is diagnostic analytics.
And this answers why it happened.
Yes, why did it happen? This requires the system to cross-reference multiple disparate data sets. A diagnostic query will analyze that 14% drop in boot sales and cross-reference it against supply chain data.
Ah, to see if a shipping delay caused stockouts in the most popular sizes, maybe.
Exactly. Or if a competitor's aggressive online promotion siphoned away the traffic.
Okay, so you are isolating the root cause. But even then, diagnosing a broken supply chain yesterday doesn't really tell a merchandiser what to put on the shelf tomorrow.
Which brings us to Stage 3, predictive analytics. This tier answers what is likely to happen next. This is where machine learning models really enter the picture.
Okay, now we're getting to the predictive stuff.
Right. Instead of just looking backward, the system runs continuous probability models. It ingests historical sales data, seasonal buying patterns, and broader economic indicators to forecast future demand.
Wow.
It can even identify which specific customers have an 80% probability of abandoning the brand entirely within the next 30 days.
Wait. A machine identifying a customer who is going to churn before the customer even knows they're going to churn. I need to push back on that. How does an algorithm read a mind?
Well, it doesn't read minds. It reads behavioral deviations.
What does that mean in practice?
So if a highly engaged loyalty member who typically logs into the app twice a week and buys a product every month suddenly stops opening promotional emails,
Okay.
and they dramatically increase their time between visits and start abandoning carts, the predictive model flags that behavioral signature.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, it calculates the statistical probability of churn based on thousands of similar historical profiles.
That is wild, and that leads to the final, most advanced tier, right?
Yes. What's fascinating here is Stage 4 prescriptive analytics. It takes the prediction and actively recommends a mathematical solution.
So it answers, what should we do right now?
Exactly. If the predictive model forecasts a massive demand spike for a specific product in a specific region, the prescriptive engine doesn't just send an alert.
What does it do?
It calculates the shipping costs, weighs them against the potential profit margins, and actively recommends reallocating 500 units of inventory from a slow-moving Midwestern warehouse to a high-demand coastal storefront.
Just to maximize net profitability.
Precisely.
But for a prescriptive engine to run those kinds of complex Monte Carlo simulations and produce an accurate recommendation, it needs an incredible amount of raw, real-time intelligence. I mean, the algorithm is just an engine, right? It needs fuel.
Absolutely.
Let's map out exactly where retailers are harvesting all this data.
The primary foundation is point of sale, or POS data. This captures the transactional reality, the exact product, price, and timestamp of every purchase.
But a receipt doesn't tell a retailer anything about the human making the purchase.
It doesn't. So to build a profile, retailers integrate loyalty program data. This introduces longitudinal visibility, tracking an individual's purchase history, their visit frequency, and their lifetime value to the brand.
Right, and then you layer in the operational telemetry. Real-time inventory levels across hundreds of locations, sell-through velocity, and even the exact physical location of shipping containers in transit.
Yeah, but the most critical layer for modern personalization is e-commerce behavior data. This tracks pages viewed, search bar queries, and time spent lingering on a specific product image.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When we talk about tracking digital behavior, we aren't just logging successful sales, we are tracking the friction points.
Yes, the things they didn't buy.
Exactly. Think about the items you almost bought but didn't. When a system tracks a product that gets viewed 5,000 times in a single afternoon but only purchased twice, that non-purchase data is arguably more valuable than the sales data.
It really is. It pinpoints a massive failure in the customer experience.
Right, perhaps the shipping cost is too high, or the product description is confusing, or maybe a glitch is just preventing the checkout button from loading.
And identifying that friction is the essence of diagnostic analytics applied in real time. But, the most sophisticated retail architectures look far beyond their own internal servers. They pull in external market data to anticipate reality before it happens.
External data.
Yeah. Lululemon provides a brilliant structural example of this from the content we're analyzing.
Let's break down the mechanics of what Lululemon is actually doing, because casually glancing at a weather app isn't a $37 billion strategy.
No, it is about systemic integration. Lululemon connects external meteorological APIs directly into their central inventory management systems.
Okay.
The architecture continuously ingests 14-day weather forecasts and cross-references them against their own internal supply chain timelines.
So if the system calculates that it takes 4 days to move heavy winter apparel from a central hub to a regional store,
And the API flags an incoming cold front hitting that region in 5 days, the prescriptive engine executes the transfer immediately.
oh, wow. So they position the cold weather inventory geographically before the temperature even drops.
Exactly. They anticipate the psychological shift in consumer demand, rather than reacting to empty shelves after a blizzard hits.
That is brilliant. I want to look at the tangible financial impact of this machinery, though. What actually happens to the profit and loss statement when these models are fully operational?
The financial returns are profound, particularly in the realm of personalized recommendations. Amazon represents the absolute apex of this capability.
Oh, Amazon is on another level.
They attribute approximately 35% of their total global revenue directly to their recommendation engines.
35%.
Yeah, that is driven by collaborative filtering algorithms analyzing billions of interactions to suggest the exact right product at the exact right millisecond of the customer journey.
But Amazon operates with near infinite computational resources. Let's bring this down to a more relatable scale.
Okay, fair enough.
There is a documented use case of a mid-sized clothing retailer implementing demand forecasting. Through analytics, they discovered that 23% of their total inventory was locked up in slow-moving, out-of-season items.
23% is a huge liability.
Right. That was $180,000 in pure capital, just sitting dormant on warehouse racks, generating zero return.
And dead capital is a slow poison for any retail operation. It incurs storage costs while simultaneously preventing the company from investing in trends that are actually selling.
Exactly. So by applying predictive demand models, this mid-sized retailer systematically managed targeted clearance events. They recovered $145,000 of that trapped capital and immediately redirected it into fast-moving inventory.
That's fantastic.
The net result was an 18% boost in overall profitability, generated entirely by mathematical reallocation rather than blind discounting.
This operational speed is exactly what we at Kanerika focus on every single day.
Right, absolutely.
When we work with retail and fast-moving consumer goods organizations, the goal is always to collapse the time between gathering a data point and executing a profitable action. We at Kanerika help these organizations build custom machine learning models for demand forecasting, dynamic pricing optimization, and hyper-segmented customer targeting.
And delivering those capabilities requires enterprise-grade architecture.
It does. We build these solutions on platforms like Microsoft Fabric, Databricks, and Snowflake. The objective is to take highly fragmented, messy information and engineer a pipeline that gives merchandising, marketing, and supply chain teams the ability to make mathematically sound decisions in hours rather than waiting weeks for a manual spreadsheet report.
I have to play the skeptic here, though.
Go for it.
If the mathematics are this proven and the ROI is an 18 to 25% margin improvement, why isn't the entire industry executing this flawlessly? I mean, why did I walk into a major hardware store yesterday and find 3 empty shelves where my required items should have been?
because achieving this state of analytical maturity is structurally brutal. The primary roadblock crippling most retailers is the existence of data silos.
Data silos.
Yeah. A typical enterprise runs a point-of-sale system purchased in 2015, an ERP tracking the warehouse implemented in 2018, and a cloud-based e-commerce platform launched just last year.
So none of them talk to each other.
Exactly. These systems are built by different vendors, they use entirely different database structures, and they do not communicate with each other natively. If your core systems cannot share information in real time, any analytical output will be fundamentally flawed.
Let me offer an analogy for this. Having world-class predictive models sitting on top of siloed data is like hiring a Michelin star chef, but locking them in a kitchen where all the ingredients are hidden inside random, unlabeled steel boxes.
That is exactly what it feels like.
Right. The talent and the processing power are in the room, but the raw materials required to create the outcome are completely inaccessible.
The chef analogy perfectly captures the frustration of modern data scientists. And even if you manage to unlock those boxes, you face the second major roadblock: data quality.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Yep. Integrating the systems is useless if the underlying data is toxic. Duplicate customer profiles, missing zip codes, and inconsistent product naming conventions, they all destroy the integrity of a forecast.
Which brings me to the massive hype cycle surrounding artificial intelligence right now. So what does this all mean for AI? Every retail executive wants an AI button on their dashboard to magically optimize their pricing.
Of course they do.
But if we follow the logic of the locked kitchen, throwing an advanced neural network at a swamp of duplicate records and siloed ERPs won't fix the business. It will just process the garbage faster, generating highly advanced, incredibly confident wrong answers.
Confident wrong answers, yes.
The quality of the underlying data integration is the absolute ceiling on AI performance.
That is the hard truth of the digital shift. The glamorous, prescriptive AI models are entirely dependent on the unglamorous, painstaking work of data engineering.
Right, so how do they fix it?
To fix this, retailers must adopt a modern data stack. This requires building a unified collection layer to standardize the messy inputs. That clean data is then routed into a cloud-native storage environment, like Microsoft Fabric or Snowflake.
Got it.
You then place a visualization tool, like Power BI, on top so human operators can actually monitor the flow. Only when that entire foundation is solid do you deploy the AI and predictive algorithms on top of it.
And we also cannot ignore the compliance reality here.
No, absolutely not.
Tracking a customer's digital friction points and loyalty history requires navigating a total minefield of privacy regulations. Between GDPR in Europe, CCPA in California, and the systematic elimination of third-party tracking cookies by major browsers, a retailer cannot just vacuum up consumer data recklessly anymore.
Compliance is no longer an IT afterthought, you know? It's a foundational architectural requirement. You cannot bolt privacy controls onto an AI model after it has already been trained on non-compliant data.
That sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen.
It is. The governance rules dictating exactly who can access what data and for how long they must be engineered into the very bottom layer of the data stack.
And this intricate web of data quality, system integration, and regulatory compliance is exactly why we at Kanerika partner with retailers to build these infrastructures from the ground up.
Exactly. We don't just hand an executive an algorithm and walk away. We at Kanerika engineer the data pipelines, establish the critical governance frameworks, and implement the predictive AI securely.
Because the goal is to ensure that when a supply chain manager looks at a prescriptive recommendation to move $1 million of inventory, that mathematical output is reliable, compliant, and fully audit-ready.
That is the bottom line. Relying on legacy intuition or last year's promotional calendar is a guaranteed trajectory toward obsolescence. The retail landscape moves way too quickly, and the margins are entirely too unforgiving.
It is mathematically impossible to keep up manually.
Right. The organizations that engineer clean, unified data pipelines will consistently outprice, outstock, and outmaneuver competitors who are still trying to piece together the narrative using delayed manual reports.
The transition from guessing to knowing is definitely the defining retail battleground of this decade. As we conclude today's deep dive into the machinery driving the industry, I want to leave you with a mechanical reality to consider the next time you open your favorite shopping app.
A little food for thought.
Exactly. When you receive a highly specific, perfectly timed digital discount for a pair of shoes you lingered on just 3 days ago, recognize the calculation behind the screen.
It wasn't an accident.
No. Ask yourself, did you consciously decide to make that purchase? Or did the retailer's prescriptive algorithms process your behavioral data so accurately and calculate your price sensitivity so perfectly that the offer was mathematically irresistible?
Meaning the decision to buy was already made for you before you even clicked the button.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us on The Digital Shift.